Welcome. This is Life and Art with Nicole, and I'm your host, Nicole. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about books, art, music, acting, spirituality, health, wellness. And I'm so excited because today I have my very first guest. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Jessica Abrams. Hi.
Hi.
Jessica is an actor, a writer, a playwright, and a stand-up comic. So we have a really exciting episode. I'm super excited she's here with us. And yeah, we're just going to chat about really cool things, like what's happening in the industry and what you're working on, and just, yeah, lots of really cool topics. So stay tuned. So you just moved from LA.
I did. Although I do still have a place in LA. So I'm ideally going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here in North Carolina in this wonderful space. And then I want to go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to move? I know you were doing the acting teaching at the acting school. And
yes.
So that was your initial reason to come, or were you going to come back anyway?
I had been back during COVID for about 6 months. It was during COVID. I was, by myself in my LA apartment, trying to, it was fine. Actually, it wasn't the worst. I really, it was kind of one of the best times of my life, honestly. And I had, neighbors close by. I was starting this baking business. It was great.
Baking?
I started baking.
Oh my goodness.
I had never baked really before. And I started baking and selling pieces of cake, like delivering it to people. So I got to see people, even though, we were both wearing masks, mm-hmm. and we'd be like, 50 feet apart, hello. And I'd, leave the cake there and then, goodbye, drive off. But, it was social interaction.
Did you have a website?
I did it all through Instagram. I did it all through social media. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yes.
So
yes. This is
baker.
Yes. And I this is the thing. Yeah. I think you can attest to this. It's like creativity is creativity.
Right.
If it finds its own form,
yeah.
It almost doesn't matter in a lot of ways.
Right.
Granted, I think at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
I'm not, baking is great. I don't think it could ever be my only thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was wonderful. I got really obsessed. I'd be sitting there because I had so much downtime. It was COVID and I was single, living alone. So I would just be scrolling through recipes. I was also doing gluten-free.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so I just be obsessively scrolling through recipes and pinning them and, saving them and modifying them. Oh, I was obsessed. I think it really saved me.
Yeah. Well, because during that time, it's especially, because we're actors, right?
Yeah.
So it's we're waiting for work.
That's right.
And you need that creative outlet. So that's
mm-hmm.
amazing that
mm-hmm.
you went into the baking field.
I don't even know how, the way it started is I was baking and I was giving, I didn't want to keep everything for myself, obviously.
Right.
So I was giving it to neighbors. And I have a neighbor, shout out to Kathleen, who is gluten-free, cannot eat gluten. Oh, wow. So, I would give her, she'd be almost like my taste tester. And then I'd give it to other neighbors because I lived in this wonderful, still have the place, live in this wonderful community of creative people. So people were around, a lot of people single, I'd, leave a piece, for them. And everybody really liked it. Wow. And that's how I decided I was going to monetize it and do a business. And then, I started doing whole cakes for people who were, needing it for events or whatever.
Wow. That's so cool.
It was cool. I don't have it. My oven here is not working, and that's a problem. So otherwise I would totally get back and do it here. But anyway, to go back to your question. So
I don't remember what I asked
about how I ended up here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. How you moved.
So I was here for 6 months during COVID, and as an actor, because this area in the Southeast wasn't hit as hard as LA was, I was auditioning more than most of my LA friends. So wow. I was auditioning a lot. This was during, when Dope Sick was being, being shot.
Because that was 2019?
No, it was
I'm sorry,
2020.
2020.
2020.
Yeah,
It was
2020.
20. It was like the fall of 2020 and into the spring of
Yeah,
2021.
there was a lot of work in the Southeast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was auditioning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I was auditioning. I was in this very peaceful area. I had my family close by because I'm from here. And I was just like, why am I going back to LA? I did not want to. I mean, I drove. I drove. I wouldn't recommend doing that alone, by the way, to those of you.
From
Do not
LA
try,
to East Coast.
do not try that at home. It was horrible. I mean,
Oh,
it was
wow.
hard. I don't want to say horrible because nothing happened, thank God, but it was challenging when you're driving, 5 to 8 hours a day by yourself
Wow.
on, in sometimes areas where you're like, you know what, if the
Yeah.
car breaks down,
Yeah.
I don't, so I
How
did.
many days did that take?
Well, the first day, I mean, the first coming, so I took 40, 40 all the way. I got waylaid by there was a snowstorm in Texas. I was in the panhandle of Texas, and there was in late October a massive snowstorm. They call it Winter Storm Billy. I was basically snowbound in a La Quinta for 4 days.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
Could not go anywhere. Car was under snow. There was a Waffle House nearby, thank God. I mean, and if there's going to be anything,
Yeah.
at least there's a freaking Waffle House, right? Or a Chipotle. Like
Yeah.
it's 6 of 1. Do you
Yeah,
want
right.
semi-decently healthy food, for cheap, or really bad, greasy food for cheap? I wish there had been both. I mean, really,
Yeah.
but like
Waffle House worked.
Waffle House was working, yeah. So, and luckily I had packed all this food because it was COVID, so I didn't want to have to be dependent on. So I had food. I was essentially self-sufficient in my hotel room in Amarillo. So
Wow.
that made it much longer. But I was basically, it took about 10 days.
Wow. How long does it normally take? Like 4 or
Well,
5?
it's about a 32-hour trip. So if you're driving, I mean, it could take 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
but because of the snowstorm, it
and
kind of
also
delayed
I
you.
kind of planned little things like
that's
I
nice.
stopped, what I really wanted to do, and I had all my camping gear because I love camping, is I wanted to camp. But as a single woman, I'm like, Jessica, maybe not. So I did do sort of the next best thing, and my second stop was in outside of Santa Fe at these treehouse cabins.
Oh, cool.
And that was really great. But the storm was rolling in, and I sort of had to make this decision, like, do I want to be snowbound here or at least make a little headway? I think it might have been a better thing to be snowbound there rather than in Amarillo, but
yeah.
Whatever. So then I carried on and, just pressed through. And, what happened was when I got to Oklahoma, because of this horrible storm, all the power was out. So when I was looking for a hotel in Oklahoma City, there wasn't one.
Wow.
Because everybody was staying in hotels because they had no power.
So did you sleep in your car? How did you?
No, I kept going.
Oh, that's
and
smart,
then
yeah.
you keep going, and you're dealing. There's all this tribal land. There's nothing. For the first time, I wanted to see the hotels. I wanted the Chipotles. I wanted McDonald's. Normally I hate that crap. I'm like, what is that? Ruining the landscape. This time I was like, where is it? Because there's nothing.
Wow.
And you're just driving along 40, and it's tribal land.
Yeah.
And so finally, out in the distance, like a beautiful beacon, I saw it a Days Inn. And I've never pulled over so quickly. It was the weirdest Days Inn you've ever stayed at, like 70 south. But anyway, so I just pressed on. But yeah,
good.
So I was here, for what was going to be only 2 months, 6 months, and it was great. And so I was kind of like, you know what? Why don't I just? And then I came back last summer to teach, and that was a wonderful experience. And I'm just like, LA is very, very stressful.
And so how long, you were in LA for what, 10 years?
25. Not to date myself, but yes.
Wow.
25 years from 97 until, 2023. And I still love it. And to be quite honest, I'm missing it tremendously lately. It has a wonderful creative energy. Yeah. It's full of creative people, and anything goes. It's non-conventional. So, a woman of a certain age who doesn't have kids, who's not married, doesn't, there's no question. I'm just like one of many.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's very free in a lot of ways. It's very free. And it has a very, I mean, I know you get this, it's very high vibrational.
Sure.
Because it's creative and everybody's, I always say, as much as the South is friendly, LA is way friendlier. Mm-hmm. Nobody believes that, but everybody says hi when you're on the hiking trails. Maybe they think you're famous or they think you're going to help them, but who cares? They're friendly.
Right.
Here people are sort of friendly, but I meet a lot of people who you say hi and they're just like, doing a calculation in their head. And
that may be all the Northerners moving down, because
it could well, yes.
It's not the Southern. You're from the North.
Yes.
And so
there's a skepticism.
Yes. And so all of that sort of like Northern energy coming to the South, because we're going to go, to the South and it's warm and it's beautiful.
Right. And we can buy a house for a lot
cheaper.
less.
Yeah.
Yes. We can cash out and,
and then they get here and then they bring all that like kind of
totally
energy. So it's probably those people.
I think it might be. I also think it's the big difference is here it's an academic community.
Oh yeah, especially in this area.
In this particular area, right? And that's a different mentality, not better, not worse, but a very different mentality than a creative one.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've got a lot of people who are more sort of research based, science based. And LA, everybody, I mean, we you say to someone, how are you doing in LA at the checkout counter at Trader Joe's? This Mercury in retrograde has really kind of got me down.
Everybody's like,
I mean, and you're like, yeah, I know, me too. And then if you say that here, people will put you, be like, call 911.
Right.
We've got a crazy person here at Trader Joe's. Like, they don't understand. My friends still continue to laugh when I say that. Or I'll say, have you seen the moon? What moon? No, I mean, I always.
Everyone's very like down here.
They
or in their heads. It's just
very in their heads.
Whereas like creative people are
in their
in the environment, in their bodies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I do, to get back, I do miss LA, but I really kind of felt like, I wanted a fuller life. I really wanted a fuller life, and I got it. I've got my family here, and we know what family is like.
Yes, we do.
I've had to deal with can I curse?
Oh, yeah.
My shit, like, the universe is just like, sorry. The universe is like, you got to deal with your stuff now. It's been challenging because, when you have people close by like this, I've had, you've got to deal with your issues. And it isn't, what it is? It isn't even dealing with my issues so much. It's sort of standing by my beliefs about myself, despite what I think my family may think of me.
Right. So,
and how they kind of make me feel.
Right. And so, because I know we had a conversation about, because your sister is a writer.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
journalist. Yes.
Journalist.
Yes.
And so it's a very different style of writing.
Yes.
Than creative.
Yes.
More creative writing.
Exactly.
And so like there's been a little bit of that tension, right? Growing up or whatever. Is that
yes.
what you said?
Yeah. I mean, we have not had a great relationship. We both want one. But because of a sort of series of events, also birth order, I think is so important.
Oh, right.
I'm the oldest. She's the youngest. There's a 5-year difference in, my dad died when I was 18. She was 13. So, we had a very different kind of familial experience. And we've had a lot of clashes. It's been hard. So there's a lot of that to deal with. However, and, it is sometimes, there isn't, in LA, again, there's just this sort of buzzing energy of creativity. And here it's quiet. It forces you to do things on your own, maybe without, because of that buzzing energy, I think there's also a lot of stress.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That everybody is kind of bouncing off one another. Here, there isn't stress. There really isn't. And so it is, it is a better sort of, it's more of fertile ground, I think, for creativity.
Yeah.
In that way. So I think it's, it's a 6 or 1, but I do believe that it was the right thing to be here. And I started booking shows and stuff the minute I got here. So I thought that was the universe being like, you're in the right place.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like just to touch on what you were saying about the creative space being really quiet around here, it's interesting because there are so many creative people in this area. Like I was saying just earlier today, like I have so many friends that have done amazing things in whatever field it is. So the music industry, the acting, acting, writing, it doesn't matter. And they're all here. And
it's amazing.
And it's weird because like you don't think about North Carolina being like a hub of creativity, but it is actually, and more people are coming here.
100%. It's really, yes, there are. As a matter of fact, I went out once a couple of weeks ago with a friend, and we met up with other friends of hers, and I would say over half the people in that group of maybe 6 people had come from LA.
Wow.
Yeah, not everybody was in a creative field, but they had come from LA.
And they were here.
They were here. No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. What I think is a really, and you're doing it right now, and we're talking about doing it, like, how can we bring those people together?
Right.
How can we sort of, create,
like build a bigger community, or like community. Pull people from wherever they are and bring them all together.
Exactly.
Because, like I was in Atlanta, and I had spoken about this in episode 1, and I think I also talked about it in episode 2, but being down there, it's a big city.
I know.
It's not as big as LA, but it's getting there.
It is.
And so many people from LA have moved there.
Yep.
And so and then you've got all these, Tyler Perry built his big studio. Yep. And in his studio, he built an actual mock White House. So all of the movies and TV shows now, I believe, are filming, like anything that has to do with the White House or presidential stuff, they're filming in Atlanta, and it looks identical to the actual White House. So it's like the ability to create in Atlanta has just grown exponentially.
Yes.
And so all these people from all over the country, all over the world are like flocking there. So I think North Carolina is sort of like just a hop, skip, and a jump up,
Absolutely.
And so more people are, I think maybe even if they don't want to stay in Atlanta, they're coming here. But the thing that I found, and this is what I did talk about in episode 1, is that there is a difference between living in a big city as an actor, as a working actor, and not, so it's like you're really fortunate that you were able to come here and book work, like, as you work. Because I've been booking work, but I noticed that the work slowed down for me personally when I moved out of out of Atlanta.
Interesting.
Not to say that the work isn't there, but it's a different kind of work.
Interesting.
Like there's a lot more local stuff.
Yes.
Whereas in Atlanta, it was like I was always going to Florida, or was going here, or was going there to film, But in North Carolina, it's like local commercial, like $1 billion, there's tons of that. But then also because of self-taping,
Well, and I want
anywhere.
And I wanted to that point. When I just recently, shot the Netflix movie Shirley, which you so kindly helped me self-tape.
I'm so excited to see that.
Me too. I don't know when it's coming out, but that was, because I also work as an LA local, so I'm also working as and so I flew myself back. Well, and I kind of kept it on the DL that I wasn't really, spending my full time in LA. But then come to find out on those shoot, one of the guys was from Puerto Rico. One of them was from Trinidad. There was a woman from Cincinnati. I mean, everybody had come from somewhere else.
Did they say local, or did they say like, I'm a Cincinnati person, and then they flew them in?
No, they said local. They flew themselves in. The guy from Puerto Rico similarly he has a place to stay. He works as a local in LA, but he doesn't live in LA.
Yeah.
And so
as long as you have a place to stay in those cities.
Exactly.
Because because I have a lot of friends that live in Atlanta. Yeah. So if anything came up that I had to audition for that said Atlanta local, I would be able to say yes.
Absolutely. And same here. I have a good friend in Atlanta, but I would also, if I book something, I'd figure it out, you know, and similarly, like with the movie, there was a certain amount of financial, I had to rent a car. Right? Yeah. So I'm renting a car for 7 days, but it was kind of worth it.
Yeah. So that is the downside of being a local, is that you don't get, because this is what we said earlier, you don't get the fly-in treatment. They don't, pick you up in the car.
But they wouldn't have done that for any, but right. And they wouldn't have done that for that role anyway, because that was a day player, one day's work, right? So it really depends on the role, I think, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it was worth it. And I think you're right. I mean, it's not, and I think, the other thing about not living in a city where you have this sort of creative not a creative hotbed, is that it's really hard to sort of, in LA, even if you're not working, you have a lot of other people not working.
Right.
And so, you go out at any time of day and there's people walking their dogs, there's people in coffee shops, they're working on this, they're working on that. They're not, you don't sort of feel like you've got to justify your existence. Whereas in a place like this, which is more, family, 9-to-5 job, whatnot, and there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But when you're not living that life, and I have lived a 9-to-5 life. It was, a dark time, but a very dark time.
Glad
Disney.
I got out of that.
Oh God, yeah, I worked for Disney. It's a long story. But,
interesting.
Oh yeah, ABC Disney, yes. And but you're with like-minded people in LA. You're with like-minded people who are also, and who will say, listen, you're great. This is going to happen for you. We bolster each other. And here, not that you don't, and I hope I can do that for you, and that's because we need each other. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Because for most of people in this world, your family is not going to do that for you.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, and
right?
That's a hard lesson to learn too, because
yes, ma'am.
A lot of people who, whatever creative industry they're in, they're expecting their family, even their friends, to support them, and then when they don't get that support, they get discouraged, and they're like, well,
right.
What? How do you not support my dreams and my passions? And
right. Well, and
that's a hard pill to swallow.
You don't feel seen.
Yeah, exactly.
And to not feel seen, I think, is one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yeah, seen and heard.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And this is what I talked about in episode 1: is the importance of having a voice, and everybody has something to contribute. And,
exactly.
And to be around family who you think are the ones you're with them your whole life, right?
Yeah.
Or usually, and so you expect them to be the first ones to praise you and be behind you on everything, and it's not always the case. And it's
oh God, I mean, it's very rarely the case.
And so you have to find that creative community.
You have to.
And so that is the benefit of living in LA or a big city that fosters that creative energy in people.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
Whether you're working, whether you're not working, you're seen and you're understood because.
Yep. Understood. Yeah. Because. Yeah. Just like we were saying, in your situation with your sister or your family.
Yeah.
And then in pretty much anyone who's creative has this situation with somebody in their life, but they don't. Why are you doing that?
Right.
Don't you think you're kind of wasting your life? And it's like, no, I'm fulfilling my life.
Exactly.
I'm being the creative being that I'm supposed to be. And,
absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, like the narrative about that is being rewritten. There's a wonderful, I don't know do you ever see Inspired to Write on Instagram?
No. Is that like a channel or a page?
She's amazing. Okay. She's like a creativity coach. And her whole thing is like, just changing the sort of paradigm in terms of what we creatives, I think for so long too, in order to prove ourselves, in order to justify our choices, we think we have to work in the same way that people who are not creative work. Right. So if we're not, we don't have a lot of output and we're not working for, 8 hours a day, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And that's untrue. Mm-hmm. That is patently untrue. We have our brains work differently. Yeah. The way we work is different. We do not, we should not compare ourselves to, because look, as we know, the 9-to-5 doesn't work for a lot of people. It doesn't. Yeah. And so to then
get burnt out.
They get quickly. Burnt out. They're living these sort of quietly, miserable lives. Not all, but a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think, so to sort of, compare ourselves or to set a benchmark based on that kind of light for our own, creative stuff is really is unfair to us.
Yeah.
I think it is. And so, she sort of talks about how, if, there's different kinds of creatives, there are different kinds of writers. There's the writer who, writes once a month, or then there's the ones who write once a week or once a day. So, anyway, it's, wow. I think the paradigm is sort of changing too. Yeah. And we have to really, I think it's really about standing by who we are and noting that the paradigm in the world is shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially now with so many different streaming platforms, there's so many opportunities for creatives to show their work and show what they can do without having to go through like a big studio or without having to go through a big network or a big production company.
Just the social media alone.
Yeah. TikTok is like, I just got on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And it's funny because I had just gotten my new phone. And I went to the Verizon store and I was asking the guy who was helping me.
Yeah.
And I was like, how old are you? And he said he was in his mid-20s or something. And I was like, so what platform are you on usually? And I said, are you on TikTok? He was like, yeah, I'm on TikTok. And it actually surprised me. He said he was on Instagram more, which I was surprised by that because I would think that the younger generation would be more like the TikTokers.
It's a special,
yeah. I think it's more of the really creative ones.
I think
TikTok,
so. Yes.
And the videos that I see, I'm like, I get inspired. I'm like, what is this little 18-year-old doing? That's so cool, But that's and I feel like this younger generation is very lucky in that sense.
Yes.
Because it's a catch-22, right?
I was going to say lucky in some ways, not so lucky. Yeah.
Lucky in the ways that they're able to express their creativity in their own way on a platform that they can express to the world. Not so lucky in the sense that now you have this, you're constantly comparing yourself to others.
Yes.
You're constantly worrying about how many views do I have? How many people have seen me? And so then that anxiety gets worse and worse. And we're seeing major anxiety in these younger generations.
And depression, which is the same side of both sides of the same coin. But
because
I know,
because they are constantly measuring themselves up to other people who are either having success on these platforms or in whatever it is. They could be like, oh, that person is more attractive, or that person is more creative, or that person's more talented, or that person's more funny.
Exactly.
And that's the downside. And so I kind of am a little nervous for this next generation because they aren't grounded in that sense.
Yes.
They're not grounded in the we grew up, there was no social media.
Exactly.
It was you go and you hang out with your friends in person.
That's right.
You go to the shows, you go to be on set, whatever it is, you're there in person and you wait, you have to wait months, if not years, to see a production that you were in. Right. Or,
exactly.
Or if you're in the stage, it's like you get that instant, gratification. But now it's so instant, know, and it's like, these kids are like, oh my gosh, nobody liked my video in 5 minutes. And then they go and get depressed.
Oh, I know. No, exactly.
And so it's like they don't have that. They unfortunately don't have that. I mean, maybe some of them do. I don't know. Maybe they have practices, yoga or something that they do to keep themselves sane. Right. But for the most part, I feel like there is that element of ungroundedness.
Agreed.
Agreed. It's going to be really interesting.
I agree.
What happens with this.
Yep.
Yeah. But speaking of the stage, so let's talk about your comedy. How did you get into doing stand-up comedy?
It was something I'd always wanted to do. And I thought that I just always had a feeling that I would. And then I had a life coach who, just a couple people, like I remember one day, she was always encouraging it. We had a casting director come visit Laurie Records, great woman, great casting director, commercials, who was like, I see you doing stand-up. And it was just sort of out of the blue. And I knew people who had taken this class called Pretty Funny Women in LA, which was women, obviously. So that made it a different energy. And she gets you up on stage right away. And it's not even like, you study some joke styles, printouts, the comedy in threes, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And then you get up on stage.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're going to an open mic that first week. So it just happened. And,
wow.
It was really interesting because a little bit about me. I came to LA as a writer, wanted to write screenplays, got some television work, but not, was sort of feeling like things were at a standstill. Whether they were or weren't is another story, but it felt like they were. So I had always wanted to act. I really feel like that was more of my sort of trajectory, and writing was a way to kind of avoid it. It was a way to avoid it. It was a scarier thing to really put myself out there.
It's easier to kind of hide behind the words.
That's exactly right. It's easier to hide behind the words. Yeah. That's it. And so, I was doing that, and I had just gotten fired from my job at Disney. Long story. And
wait, this is the is this the one that had the Chicago?
No, that was God. I've gotten fired a couple times. No. No, that was later. That was later. I have been at Disney for several years, and we're going to segue right into what you wanted to talk about. But so it was the 2007-2008 writer's strike, and I was picketing because I was also in the guild. What I didn't know was that picketing during lunch, it got back to my bosses, and they hated me for it.
But wait, aren't you supposed to picket?
Well,
don't they encourage that?
No, not the studio. They don't at all.
The studio doesn't.
Yeah.
The guild encourages it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the studio found out there was a very miserable person there who felt the need to report me to my boss, who, let's be honest, probably would have found out anyway. But so it became, I just became a persona non grata there. He couldn't even look me in the eye. And that was year one of my being there 3 years, which interestingly enough also has been the case for several of my relationships. Like a year in, I'm like, this is not working. And then 3 years later, we finally break up. So I don't know what that says about me, 1 to 3. But anyway, so yeah, so I hung on. And then after that, I took an acting class. So once I got fired, which was inevitable, I took an acting class because on my street was, across the street lived a guy named Anthony Mindel, Tony. And Tony had an acting studio. At the time, it was tiny. It was in a little space. He now has one in Sydney, Atlanta, New York, London,
I've seen
whatever.
His
you saw his, yes.
Yeah, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So he and I were friends, and he was going to direct one of my scripts. And I got to know a lot of his actors, just because we would do readings, and they would, we would cast from his group of amazingly talented actors. And so it just was like, oh, I want to take an acting class. Of course, at the time, I'm like, oh, it'll help my writing. It was sort of a way to, sort of take the pressure off, But I was hooked. I mean, I was like, this is, awesome. And, it did take a while. I think, again, I think that's sort of the recurring theme here is that, I probably takes me longer to either commit to something or not. But it took me a while to say fully, like, yes, I am an actor. And, a lot of it, too, is I think we have these silly, really, ways of defining ourselves. You talk about it like you're an actress, you have a book that you wrote, you're a gardener, you have a jewelry company, you're a jewelry designer. We are multifaceted human beings. Mm-hmm. But the old way of looking at things is always like, you do one thing.
Pick one thing and stay there.
Right. Yep. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's very, very, it limits us as humans.
Yep.
And it's particularly artists.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that was kind of what I struggled with a lot. Because my upbringing, my mom being German, very much like, yes, you pick one thing, you stay with this, this is your, you work for the firm for 25 years and you get, it's all this. And, that is not, people do it. I'm not going to disparage. People do it. But I don't think that's for everyone. And I do think in humanity, in all its full floweredness, is capable of
Right.
many, many different things. And if we're lucky enough, we can allow that, and nourish that.
Like when I was growing up, it was you were either a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief. And I was like, I don't want to be any of those.
No.
I want to be on the stage.
Exactly. Exactly. Are you sure your parents aren't Jewish?
I mean, I don't know.
Or German?
New Jersey,
Yeah.
Like, actually, we lived in Germantown in New Jersey. So how funny is that?
Oh,
Like, well, it was like kind of dubbed Germantown because there were a lot of, German immigrants that lived in that area.
Yeah.
So it's but it was like, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, or you're an Indian chief.
Wow.
Like, literally. And I don't want to do any of that, Ma. I want to be on the stage.
I know.
So, yeah. Well, anyway,
yes.
So you decided.
So I decided, started taking and then eventually was really again took me a little while, really committed to it, and I think in many ways what stand-up is sort of a bridge between, and then I started doing stand-up. It's a bridge between writing and acting because I'm performing, but I'm writing.
You're writing your own material.
I'm writing my own material, so it just makes it feels right. I love it so much. I mean, I really do. Because the great thing about stand-up is exactly that. I don't have to, it's great for people who have, need instant gratification, who have short, sort of attention spans. You write a joke, you go and perform it that night. It works or it doesn't work. You work on it. Ideally, you continue to work on certain pieces of material. That's what makes them good. Or if they don't work, they don't work. But my point is, you're not writing a script waiting for somebody to read it.
Right.
Which when you aren't a sort of a name, it's a labor of love that often just kind of goes
flat. Yeah, nothing comes of it.
Right? It's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. And then the other side of that, of course, is being an actor, where you do have to wait for someone to give you an audition or be in a play or whatever. And yes, we can create our own work, but at the end of the day, we do need others to do it in some way. So with stand-up, you don't.
Wow. It's like a one-person show.
You
write your own material, you go up, you do it, and then you
Exactly.
So I did improv for years. And
did you tell me that?
I may or may not have.
I feel like I knew that, but go on.
So I studied improv, like all the different styles, and then I was in 2 improv groups, and we would travel around. And
here or in Atlanta?
Here.
Wow!
Yeah, and we would travel around, and we would perform in like different bars and different little theaters and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. And I considered for a very short amount of time like going into stand-up because all the guys I was in one improv troupe.
Because there's such a
so I was in one improv troupe, and it was all guys. I was the only female, and they all were stand-up comedians, and they would all perform actually I think a couple of them, I'm not sure if they all did, but a couple of them performed at Good Nights.
Okay.
You also you have a show coming up there, right?
Yes, at the end of the month. Yeah.
So I was around these stand-up comedians, and I was like performing with them, and so I considered very briefly like going into it, but I was like, I can't do this. I can't write my own.
Wow.
I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I guess I was nervous about is the joke gonna land? Like, I'm more funny like in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, you give me something, yes, and I'll do it. You know, like I can be very funny in that sense. Yeah. But like writing I don't know. I have a sense of humor, obviously, but I was nervous about getting into it. So kudos to you for being able to pursue that stand-up comedian.
It's a very odd art form. It's an odd art form. However, I do really think it is, that sort of storytelling tradition that we, as humanity used to do, where we would sit around a fire and whatever, pass the talking stick. It's that. It brings people together, it really does. It's great. I really love it. I really do.
That's good. So you have a show coming up.
I've got a show coming up. It's actually a North Carolina's Funniest Person
cool
contest, and I'm July hold on, let me see, July 26th.
July 26th.
At Good Nights.
So if you're in North Carolina, Raleigh, in particular,
Raleigh.
Good Nights, which is a really big comedy club. A lot of people come to that comedy club.
It really is. It's a great spot.
Yeah, a lot of famous comedians have talked about going to
Yes,
Goodnight. So.
Jessica Kirsten was just there. I think Pete Davidson was recently there.
He was recently there.
Yeah.
So the writer's strike, what's happening with that?
God.
Right now? Like, what is the latest that you've heard? Because I know the last time we met for coffee and we were talking about it, and it had just started, right? Or it had just...
Yes. Yeah, it's been going now for over 60 days.
Wow.
And the last one was 90 days. I don't think it's going to end at 90 days, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, just from what I, because I'm getting Hollywood Reporter emails.
Yes.
Just like I keep up on what's happening. And I mean, it's unfortunate, that these studios can't work with these writers. I know. And the fact that we even, like you said, the last time we had a writer's strike was what, 2008 or something?
2007,
like that?
2008.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't understand why these studios are not paying their writers, because the way I see it, the writers, they create the world.
I know. Well, I think it is emblematic of what we are dealing with today listen to me, I think it is emblematic of what we're dealing with. Yes, Nicole. No, of like these freaking profits. Once they started doing quarterly profit reporting in industry, business, then it was constantly having to show a profit every quarter. So it has squeezed the workers. Yeah. Because everything is about profit. So everything is bigger, better, faster, more. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening here. They, look, they want to eliminate the writers. They want to eliminate unions if they can. Yeah. Because they just want to have more and more profit. Yeah. And so, they, I mean, I think it's, I really think, in the 2007-2008 strike, the issue was at the time, and if, we can even remember that far back, the notion of impending streaming. We knew that it was going to be coming. Yeah. We had absolutely no idea what it was going to look like. Mm-hmm. Did the studios? Hell yes. Yeah. They're not going to reveal that information. Right. But, did they predict a Netflix? Did they predict an HBO Max, or as it is now, just Max? No. I mean, we don't know, right? But nobody can sort of foresee these things. And the problem was we didn't hold out for enough gains in those areas, in the streaming areas, mostly because, again, we didn't know it was going to be as big as it was. Yeah. We didn't know Netflix was going to pretty much set, be set the benchmark for how we look at television. Yeah. And now what's happening is we're seeing AI, coming into the viewfinder. And we are not going to make the same mistake twice. Yeah. And I say we, I'm not even really in the guild anymore, but I think we being artists, right? All of us, whether we're Screen Actors Guild, WGA, we're like, we're not going to make the same mistake and not have enough protections in place against these the train that's coming toward us.
Because it's coming. And
it's coming. Fast. Yeah.
And, because even actors, are concerned about AI sort of getting rid of their roles, and
absolutely.
It's just like there's, especially, you've got Chat GPT, which is, or that's one of them, but that's the writing aspect. But then you also have DALL-E, which is they create the imagery. And so they can recreate real life,
absolutely,
people.
Yep.
And
it's really scary for voice actors.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's a whole lot that's happening that I think the writer's strike is just sort of like the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
And because it is this enormous thing that's underneath everything, that these big studio heads, they are fully aware of what's going on. Yeah. And they're making these changes. Yep. Based off of margins, off of how much money can we pull in. It's no longer about the art. It's it's a business, and it's been a business at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, probably the length of Hollywood, since Hollywood has been around, it's been a business.
Exactly.
But for the longest, at least, it's been centered around the art, on artistry. But now it's almost the artistry is being squeezed out.
Absolutely.
In place of technology.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing this everywhere.
I agree.
Everywhere. But we are on the ground level of this, and we're looking at it, and
Terrifying.
as actors,
yeah,
I haven't had any auditions recently. I mean, maybe one, and
right.
And I'm not sure if you've had, but
No.
it's like it's been very slow. It's been very quiet.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to make the transition into podcasting.
Yes.
Because I was like, I feel like I have so much to say and express.
Yes.
And there are things that we need to talk about these things.
Yes.
We as actors, we as artists need to talk about the big elephant in the room.
Yes.
That's being walked in while everyone is looking over here.
Absolutely.
And
it's like, this is the sort of, I always kind of try to look at sort of the end game and the bigger, widen the lens of the camera as much as possible. And I'm looking like, what is the world going to look like when robots are when the human experience is replaced by robots?
Yeah.
Okay. I dislike it enough when I'm sitting at a table and I'm served by one of those robots.
Yeah.
That's bad enough. But to have the robots write something, to have the robots, act in something. I mean, what is this world going to look like?
Yeah.
And these people, these CEOs, these top level people who are running these things. What are they looking at? I mean, it's sort of the same with climate change. Are they all going to hide in a bunker? Are their grandchildren's children going to hide in a bunker? We're talking about you too, asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody
yeah.
will be affected by this.
Yeah.
But it's just greed and money, and it's like, it's just, honestly, it's sick.
It is. It's a sickness.
It's a sickness.
It's pervasive in Hollywood. It's pervasive
in the country,
every industry,
in everything,
in every industry. In the banking industry, in the technology industry.
Yes,
and
yes,
it is. It's like we are in the midst of a transition into a technocratic world.
Yes,
and it is sort of pushing out the human experience.
Exactly.
And so I explored around on ChatGPT, and I was like, let me prompt it to write like a brief script and see what came of it. And I read the script, and it was flat. It was boring. There was no that spark, that zest, that humans give it.
I heard it doesn't do humor. That being said,
I was literally just going to say that. It like that. Right. Those little funny quips that you get, like that you kind of throw in in a scene or whatever. None of that was there.
However, it's not. It will.
It will, because it's studying us.
Yes.
And also, it's not just studying us, we are feeding it.
That's right.
Every time we use any AI on our phones.
Yeah.
Anytime
I don't do any of that. I particularly don't. I do not want any, I don't want to help that happen.
And even, having the texting, like the autocorrect.
Oh, I hate that even. Yeah. On my yes. Well, on my work computer, it'll write my sentences for me. I'm like, stop writing. I don't want your sentence. I want my own sentence. I don't like what you're writing.
And that's the thing. Like, that's what's in. I don't think people understand that. That is how the machine is learning.
No, exactly. Exactly.
And so it's like we have to be very careful with everything that we do.
I agree.
Because we're training the AI.
We are training the beast. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's sort of like, here you go, replace us in a couple. Right. Let our children be completely, helpless and extinct in their talents. Yeah, no, I know. God, don't get me started. It's really fucked up, and
it's terrifying actually, because
it is, and it isn't, and it's all about eliminating workers and saving money.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. There's not this, we're not necessarily looking at something that is going to benefit mankind.
Right.
I'd be hard pressed for any of this shit to actually benefit mankind. It's like that meme that was going around, are they going to use AI to clean the oceans?
Yeah. Well, I saw a funny meme, and it was like, oh gosh, what was that meme? It was like, does AI? Yeah, that was right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Please,
it was
have at it. Yeah.
It's like, does AI, like,
or just going to replace writers?
Like, can you clean the ocean?
I know, exactly.
I mean, I talked about this actually in episode 2. I talked about, the emergence of tech. I think, I talked about how our use of electronics and technology, essentially technology, how we need to be very careful, because we are paving the way for, like what you just said, our own extinction in a sense, or our own our own humanity,
the
human experience,
right,
is no longer going to be human anymore.
That's right.
And that's the thing. These are these things that they are pushing for. And I'm going to do a whole other podcast episode on this particular subject.
Yeah.
How, even in the technology space, they're talking about, we want to make a bionic human. We want to merge human with technology. And it's like, it's one thing to have technology write the scripts for us. It's another thing to, have technology implanted in your eye so that you can scan your eye when you Minority Report. You remember that movie?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And how he had to scan his eye to go, and then they knew his whole history of, buying a shirt at Gap or something like that.
Exactly.
That is where technology is headed. And they're trying to, and when I say they, I mean like these big companies that are pushing for this type of technology.
The tech companies.
They are sort of putting little nuggets into people's minds into accepting this, you know? And all these movies that
That's
come
a good
out,
point.
Like the Terminator came out 20 years ago, or almost 30 years ago, and that was sort of the beginnings of, hey, let's plant this little like seed so that people will be more inclined to accept this.
I think but I also think a lot of the movies that come out about that are also prescient. They know that's, it's like predicting, like, watch out. This could be you.
Mm-hmm. Like Black Mirror. Did you see that?
Oh God. Yes.
The whole season?
Yes. I haven't seen the whole season yet, but I mean,
that gives me chills.
You gotta be in a certain mood to watch that.
Yeah,
I mean, I gotta say, and that's sort of the nature of like news today anyway. This stuff just can depress me to such a degree.
Yeah.
And I don't even have kids. I'm not even looking at I have my nephews and I think about them, but no, I mean, it can be it's very depressing. Mm-hmm. And going back to the writer's strike, it's like, I don't really see, and I have to confess, I haven't, my sort of go-to news for this is Twitter, and I haven't been on it in the last couple of days because I've tried to have a good couple of days. And, last I heard, they're not even coming to the table.
Wow.
The AMPTP isn't even coming back to the table.
So they just are like, we don't even want to listen to the writers. We already have things in plan. It's a game of chicken. And I'm curious because the SAG contract deadline was extended to July 12th. So that old contract, the expiration date has been extended because they're still talking. We'll see, how that goes. Mm-hmm. I'm honestly, I'm a little skeptical that we're going to get a deal that we want with the leaders that we have. I'm not entirely hopeful, but I think if we did go on strike, we could expedite this whole thing a little bit quicker. Sure. You got no actors, you got no writers. Right. I'm seeing a lot of big name actors kind of hopping on board.
They are. Well, they did that. Well, yeah, and Meryl Streep and apparently 10,000 other big name actors have circulated that letter to basically to SAG saying we are ready to strike. We want X, Y, and Z, and that was a really big and great thing.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much to talk about in everything that we've kind of discussed today. I'm definitely going to have Jessica on again.
Thanks. This has been so great.
I feel like we could talk forever about our acting, creativity.
It's my favorite. I mean, I love talking about it. I love. This has been the greatest.
And we have projects we're working on.
Yes. Can I just talk about how we met?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Well, talk about a creative community. I met Nicole when I was teaching at this acting studio. I'm not going to mention any names, I just always liked her. I just thought I instantly was drawn to her instantly. And then she kind of was taking a step back from it. I had just gotten to town and I had a self-tape to do. And she was the first person I thought of. It was like, I want to reach out to Nicole. And lo and behold, I'm coming over. This was a very fruitful time. I'm coming over almost every day. Yes. I'm coming in different costumes. I'm like, all right. And we just got to be friends. Yeah. And we have such a good creative energy. we're going to do, and we're talking about it now, we're going to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, we've got some really exciting projects in the works, and
you're so great. I really am grateful for you, because honestly, there's one other person that I have here who is a creative soul sister, but you're really it. So you can't move. You can't ever be mad at me. You must always call me back when I no.
I agree, and I feel the same. So I feel so thankful that you are my first guest on my podcast.
I'm honored,
and I'm definitely going to have you back. You know, we've got so much to talk about, but yeah, I mean, like I said, we could go on and on and on, but we are going to kind of end this episode here. Please like and share and comment, and also follow Jessica. You want to give your handle?
At Jessica Abrams on Instagram. That's my main.
Yeah, on Instagram. Yeah. Stop by to see her stand-up comedy show on July. When was that again?
26th.
July 26th.
I think at 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I'll put it all in the description of the podcast, and this will go live. This will be on YouTube as well, so I'll make sure to link everything there. But once again, this is Life and Art with Nicole, and thank you so much. We'll see you next episode.